Thank you for clicking on the link to watch this video, which is my short story. I lost my mother last year in 2022, and I promised myself that I would shoot a YouTube video and place it so that someone else who may go through what I went through may find healing, maybe not healing, but at least a bit of relatability. When I lost my mother, I went on YouTube, I looked for people who had lost their mothers and they're the only child. I couldn't find one specific person who had gone through the ordeal that I went through. This is just going to be a video of how I dealt with grief and how death really affected me. It was not easy losing my mother. I appear as a strong person, I know. I appear as a strong person, and you know how people will be saying, be strong, everything will be fine, but it's not like that. There are certain things that you learn by experiencing. Roughly what happened is it was on a normal Sunday. My mother was supposed to be coming to visit me that very weekend, like Sunday, the following weekend, and plans were in order. And I spend my Sundays, like I call them my lazy days, because I usually leave them in reverse. I start doing stuff late in the afternoon some days when I'm feeling really lazy, and it was one of those days. So at around 7, if I recall well, I get a call and someone says my mother has collapsed. And there and then I knelt down and I was like, Lord, not now. But something in my heart just told me, something in my heart just told me that this is it. And I kept trying to call, sending medical aid numbers, and my mom was alone. So yeah, I am her only child, and I was in Harare and she was in Bulawayo. So imagine calling 15 minutes later and all you hear are people crying in the background. That's the fate of reality. And I'm 439 kilometers away. It's at night. There's nothing I can do. That was such a life-defining moment for me. At that moment when I heard that news, I felt like God gave me a big hug. I didn't scream. I didn't cry hysterically. I was just like, what? Okay. And weirdly enough, it's like responsibility then. I don't know, I had this heavy burden to say, I'm my mother's only child, and I have to make sure that the funeral goes well. I need to plan. I need to get everyone in place, start telling people. My administrative self just kicked in, and I wanted everything to just flow smoothly. And the very next morning, I caught the first flight home. That's when I really cried. In the morning, I slept over at my sister's place. She came to pick me up and with her husband. And in the morning, as I was now boarding that flight, I cried so much. I was like, Mom, I was supposed to be seeing you this week, but now I'm going to be seeing you dead. I cried so much. When something as deep and as permanent like death happens, you just want to. I remember telling this woman at the airport that I just lost my mother. I actually didn't think I was gonna be emotional because I was recording this video. I didn't even put tissues close by, but I'm hoping my tears behave. So I remember telling this woman that I lost my mother. That was a very long flight. It's 30 minutes tops, very long. I got there home, and my friend came and picked me up at the airport, and when she saw me, she started crying and started crying again. It was so instant. It was not planned. I think instant death is such a thief because you don't know how to feel about it, because you feel like, God, you could have told me something. You could have gave me a signal. You could have, I, as a person who strongly believes in God, a moment of losing someone as precious as my mother made me feel like God had betrayed me. Like, why didn't you show me in a dream? Why didn't you warn me? I felt like that. And yeah, and then I planned for the funeral with my friends. Um, the funeral, I remember going to Nyaratso and I was telling myself, I was still speaking to her, but you know, in that first person, that first person, yeah, whatever. I was telling her that I'm now coming to see you in a funeral parlor. I'm supposed to be coming home to see you, but I'm seeing your cold body. We got into the where you get to view the persons, to identify the person's body and close members. Um, I remember her other younger sister crying so much. I was so annoyed. I was so annoyed. Like, we know she's dead. Why are you screaming? Like, babe, no. You know, there was that time for me. I just wanted to be quiet. I looked at her. Her body was cold. Uh, she lay there still. I wasn't expecting her to wake up. I was just seeing her, and a lot was going on in my head, you know? Yeah, and I had to organize everything, and that's the other thing of being an only child now. I had to do the funeral policy. Only child also with it. Like, my dad died when I was barely a year old in '98. I was born in '97, so I didn't grow up with my biological dad. So my mother has been my world. Do you understand? And my world had crashed. So yeah, that happened, and it was just so bad. I am very emotional. I'm a very sensitive person. Um, I don't know if I was strong. I kept playing the song Gyra by Maverick City the whole time. You are enough, you're enough. I will be content in every situation because Gyra, you're enough. I played that song countless times. I and God came through as I was planning for the funeral. My friends came through for me, people from church, and you know that was something else. It had happened, and you know, with death, it's just like you're on the spotlight there. So you're now the orphan, the one doesn't have a mother, the one doesn't have a father, you don't have siblings, um, and you're just there staring at death. Like, death is just staring at you in the face. You have it, you can't change it. What next? You know, I know when someone is going through grief because I'm experiencing it. I've experienced it. My life shut down. Especially, I think I've explained how pivotal my mother was in my life. She was my everything. Every dream of mine revolved around her. You know, me starting to work. You know, I would be like, Mom, I'm now working, and she's happy. She's proud of me. As I think of a wedding, I'm thinking of how I'm gonna make my mother proud because I'll get married. When I think of kids, I'm thinking, I want to have kids so that I can go live them by my mother's house, or her to, you know, babysit for me, and all of those things. All those dreams just vanished. I was just breathing. I was living in thin air. I don't know if that makes sense. I was a zombie, you know. I love church. If you know me, you know I love church a lot, and there were days I didn't want to go to church, not because I hated God, because I didn't have strength. I would wake up and be like, no ways, this is not my life. But yeah, at that point it was, you know, I've got that hot potato over here. It was, and it was now my new reality. So I wrote a few things here that I want to share. I'm not even sure if this is going to help someone, but I'm hoping it will, because death happens to all of us. And the title is Going Through Grief as an Only Child, the lessons that I've learned. Number one, the lesson that I really learned is that people die and they don't come back. Death is final. That's the most painful thing about death, it is final. You cannot reverse it. You cannot do anything to undo it. You can't go back in time to fix things. I remember on that very Sunday morning, my mother had called. Actually, the Saturday before that, the Saturday evening, it was a Film Faith concert, if I remember. Excuse me, if I remember well, it was a Film Faith concert, and my mother called. It was noisy, you know how concerts are. And then I told her, "Hi, mommy, are you okay? Can I call you back? I mean, I'm at a concert." And she was like, "Okay." But I got home a bit late and I was tired and I forgot. I called, and then in the morning she texts me, "Hey, Sammy, you said you'd call me." And I was like, "Oh, yeah." You said, I said, "I'll call you." And then I called her, and then she tells me that, "I'll see you next week at Kabig." And then she said, "Go to your aunt and do," there's something that she wanted me to go and do by my aunt's. And I told her, "I can't go today, you know." And then the phone cut. I actually then tried to go to my aunt's, and then she told me she wasn't home. The whole day I wanted to tell her that I tried reaching out to my aunt, and she told me she wasn't home, so I'm gonna do it. But I just did not. And then the next thing, she's dead. Ah, man, I wanted to reverse time. I wanted to have had that call last longer. I wanted to have told her that, you know what, I was going to do what you told me to do, even though I said I wouldn't. Death is fine now. There's nothing we can do to bring back someone who's it's a test. It's a test of Christianity, because this is where now you have to apply everything that you've learned about the doctrine of death. That I, for one, am an Adventist. I believe that that death is final. For now, it is sleep. Yes, I believe that Jesus will come again and he will take the ones who've done his will, and that the dead know nothing. But at this point in time, I wanted the dead to know something. I wanted her to come to me, to hold my hand, to tell me that, "Oh, I'm a spirit, I'm here." That's what, you know, to tell me how to go on with my life. I mean, there were days she would tell me, "We're dying is a one day," and but I didn't think it was going to be that soon. So yeah, first lesson that you need to accept as a person who's grieving is that death is final and that people die. I felt uh I felt I felt cursed in court. I felt like, why me, God, you know? I felt like there was a dark shadow over my life. Yes, the dark shadow was there, but it was just so bad. And one thing you need to accept is that everyone dies. People die. I'm also going to die. You're also going to die. The timing is the one that kills us the most, but we're just going to die, all of us. And that's one thing I'm trying to accept and learning to accept that, you know, death is final for now in this side of life. And then number two, that there was nothing I could have done to stop it. Something had happened, and we're praying with my mom about it, you know. And I don't know how deep in your African roots you guys are, but you know, when there's a bad omen, she had seen a bad omen like 3 weeks before she died, and you know, she had just told me that I saw a bad omen. And I thought maybe if I had prayed about it more, if I had fasted, maybe it wouldn't have happened. But I think I'm learning to accept that there's nothing that I could have done, because there are people who've been caught in the worst situations, people who've had buildings fall on them, earthquakes, you know, buried under earth for 2-3 days, and they're found alive. So I'm sure if God didn't want her to die, she wouldn't have. If God didn't allow it, she wouldn't have. So there was nothing I could have done to stop it. So there's nothing you can also do to stop the death of your loved one. There is nothing. When the time is, when their time has come, I guess their time would have come, really. Lesson number 3 is that there was nothing I could have done to be more prepared for her death. I think there's nothing you can do to be prepared for anyone's death. Anytime, even if she had died today, I would have still been shattered. Even if she would have died maybe 5 years later, I still have been shattered, because that's death, and there's nothing I could have done. I'm such a planner. I like planning my things so much, and I felt like, God, maybe if you had given me time, if I'd seen her sick, maybe for a couple of weeks, if I'd prepared mentally. But I think death is just death, because I've seen people who've had their mothers die after they've been admitted in the hospital. The pain is still the same. There's nothing that I could have done to be more prepared for my mother's death. This might be very hard to say out, but it is the honest truth. I learned that I'm on this journey alone, you know. You'll be on your grief journey alone, especially if you're in my situation where you're the only child, and the grief journey is so unique and it's yours alone. There's no one who shares the pain that you have, you know. There is absolutely no one who shares the exact pain that you have, because you feel it and you have to go through it alone. Yes, you can have people around you, but you're on this journey alone, you know. I was on this journey alone, and I needed to understand. People come for the funeral, they cry 5 days, 4 days, then everything is back to life, because life does not stop. Life goes on. And yeah, you need to embrace that this is your journey now. I had to embrace that this is my journey, this is my path, this is my storyline, and I needed to understand that it is, and to find ways to coping mechanisms, and to go through the grief. The fifth lesson connected to the fourth one is you need to go through the emotion. I went through the emotion. There were days I joined the gym because I wanted to help relieve, you know what they say about going to the gym, releasing good hormones, blah blah blah. Joined the gym. I wanted to release the stress, and yeah, I went through the emotion. There were days I would drive home screaming in the car, crying my eyes out, gasping for breath. It was terrible. But I think that helped, because bottling it up would have killed me more. The sixth lesson that I've learned in my grief journey is that I am loved. It's so difficult to understand the concept of love once you lose the person whom you know loved you the most, more than anything, the person who introduced love to you. I lost my mother, my everything, my world. I didn't care about love from anyone else. The love that I wanted was from my mother, and the love from other people wasn't surfacing. I know it will never surface, but I also learned that I am loved by my friends. I will always treasure the people who came through for me. My friends did the most. Even some friends who had never met my mom before. I had some who didn't manage to come to the funeral, but they were there financially. I was overwhelmed with the love that people have for me, that they showed me during the time of my mother's loss. And I just had to teach myself, to remind myself that I'm loved. Yes, they can never be enough. The love that they give me will never ever match to the love that I got from my mother. But in their capacity as my friends, they did the most, and they still continue to do it. I love my friends, they're so God-given, and I'm so grateful for them. Number 7, I learned that I should pick up the broken pieces, reroute, remap, readjust, refocus. Imagine you have your whole life centered on, you know, a certain individual type of thing, and when they go, everything loses sense. Like, you can't make sense out of what's there. So yeah, you have to learn to reroute, to readjust, map out a new life. That's what I had to do for myself. Map out a new life. Even on my vision board, there was a lot of stuff to do with my mother. I was such a mommy's girl. Oh, you know. So it was really a big loss. But once you go through grief and you've lost that very important person in your life, you need to understand that you still need to carry on with living. You need to reroute, you need to readjust and start a life without them. It's hard, but it's supposed to be done because life goes on. I promise you, if I could stop time and stay last year in July the 3rd when my mother died, I would, because I didn't want time to move. I wanted to be in a state where I'm constantly there with my mother, even I don't know, but you need to pick up the broken pieces. The eighth lesson is that it will never be okay. As a believer, you want to comfort yourself and you hear people telling you to be okay. It will never be okay. Losing someone will never be okay. There'll never be a good enough reason. And you need to understand that it will never be okay and appreciate that it will never be okay. You've lost someone, a part of your life, very important person. I lost my mother, I lost my everything, and it will never be okay, because especially going through the first of everything, my first birthday without her, my first graduation without her, my first everything, it just hurts because she's no longer there. And every time I wish that she were there and she would be seeing me or would be laughing about something. We had our own secret jokes, and it will never be okay that I lost her. Yes, God knows best. All of that, I know it, but it will never be okay. It will never be okay. Still goes back to point number one, where you need to understand that everyone dies and it will never be okay. And that's how life rolls. It will never be okay. And I have to come to terms with the fact that it will never be okay, because I cannot justify that, yo, I'm fine, she died. No, I love God, but no, I'm not fine. And it's never going to be okay for me that I lost my mother, especially at that time. Number 9, take care of yourself. This is hard because all you want to do when you're grieving is give up. I wasn't totally coping at work, at church. It was just so bad. And I remember towards the end of the year, because I told myself I'm getting into a new year, I should try to be better, not to be okay, because I'll never be, but to be better. And I told myself, okay, fine, I'm just going to go on a solo vacation. I'm just going to clear my head, to take care of myself, and all of that, because feeling good comes from the inside also. So I had to nurture my emotions. It's okay if you go for therapy. I understand my emotions, and I can process them. I got a lot of suggestions that I should go for therapy, but because I know myself, I know I can process my emotions. Might take time, but I know how to handle my emotions and process them. I didn't go for therapy, but if you need to go for therapy, go for therapy. I instead resorted to going out more, like trying out new food places. I went on a solo vacation. That helped a great deal, because it leads me to my point number 10. I consumed myself with nature. Like, I went to a place where nature is the signature of that place, and it just was a relieving feeling. It cleared my head a bit as I was starting the new year. And yeah, my point number 10 is submit to a higher power than you. We believe in different gods, different religions, but one thing that I can tell you is that the higher power that you believe in, I believe in God, Jesus Christ, and I constantly would talk to God, constantly would tell him how I'm feeling, constantly would cry. And evidently, there are moments when he would respond to me. Notably, this one time, I was so angry. I shouted at God in my car, asking about a lot of things, how things were going to go, how, and he sent my friend, okay, an old classmate of mine who stays in SA. We really talk, like really talk, but he all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, what's the word I'm looking for? Okay, so at one point in time, he actually texts me and he says, I was thinking about you, and he starts saying out answers to the things I'd prayed to God about. For example, let's just say I'd asked God, God, how am I going to pay my rent? For example. And my that friend of mine was saying, you'll never lack, or you'll never do something. So that's what happened, and I was touched. So submit to a higher power than yourself, because grief is not something that you can deal with naturally, and it's a different world out here. But I just wanted to say to whoever's watching this, as I was sharing my story, I hope I was making sense. Death happens to all of us, grief happens to all of us, but how you handle it is what defines how you will heal. Time does not take away the pain, but it allows you to live with the pain. So I hope this helps someone. Thank you very much. Cheers.